Hello everybody, this is the final video covering the preparatory steps you need to take before you begin modelling, and it will cover the 3 key questions you need to answer before you start modelling. That's what, why and how, and then it will cover the documentation you should be creating to both justify your position and also to demonstrate to your boss that you've really thought through everything and you know what the key points are that need to be discussed and agreed. Modelling notes are often seen as a waste of time or useless admin, but I assure you that if you change your mindset here, you will find that in fact they are a really useful tool for your benefit. So let's start with the what, why, how. Knowing the answer to each of these 3 questions is supremely important for you to build reliable predictive models that are suitable for purpose and justifiable. You need to consider each of these in turn and satisfy yourself that you know what to do. If you don't, then you need to speak with your key stakeholders and or superior to find the answers before you do any modelling. You're better off investing this time up front rather than risk going off on a tangent and diving into the modelling in an inappropriate way. So, firstly you need to understand what you are modelling, and that's really what we focused on in every video up to this point. Do we really know how the policy life cycle operates for the policies which we are modelling? If not, more preparation is required if we're to build a model which validly represents the policy life cycle. Don't just treat your modelling as a conceptual, pure mathematical problem. The work you do will have real-world consequences for management and employees of the company, for the pay and bonus of underwriters and claim assessors. This isn't just a bunch of random numbers in a spreadsheet, and getting it right could make the difference between a successful or failing insurer, and all the consequences for staff and policyholders that this would entail. Hence, you need to understand the policy life cycle and all the nuances that your insurer has. Is it subject to lots of small claims or just a few big claims? Are there any limitation periods around when claims must be made? Will the customers claim quickly or only after delays? What potential is there for subrogation or other recoveries late in the tail? Have we sourced and done all the analysis we can on the policy and claims databases? Have we spoken to enough underwriting and claim staff? Have we sourced external data where possible? The list goes on and shouldn't be skipped or skimmed. Next, you need to consider how you should be modelling. The first port of call should be any internal standards your company might have. If these exist, then these will clearly set out the framework of how you should be modelling. For example, being clear on the data, methodology, models and assumptions you should be using, as well as any governance around reserving. All clearly important things to be aware of, so make sure you find out if such a document exists internally and save it somewhere where you can refer to it easily. If you don't have any internal standards, then make doubly sure you're aware of the accounting regulations surrounding your work. Is it under IFRS 4 or 17 varieties, under GAAP or Solvency II? There's lots of guidance out there for you to be aware of. It's always surprising how many people don't know these regulations well and yet happily model within them. Again, find these documents and save them somewhere handy. Next, it's very likely that professional standards from your actuarial institute will exist, and you should ensure that you don't contravene these. Generally, these shouldn't be contravened if you're thinking about your work and how to communicate it, so be very concerned if you don't think you meet professional standards. Lastly, is the purpose of your work to set a single best estimate outcome? Or are you and your stakeholders more interested in the range of possible outcomes? When it comes to completing accounts and other regulatory returns, then ultimately there has to be a single best estimate view. But in other cases, understanding the range of outcomes is of more practical use. And if you're doing a range, then it needs to be constrained to within a useful and defined range. For example, 25th to 75th percentile, or maybe providing a lower, middle and upper best estimate. I would like to strike a strong note of caution here around putting any implicit caution in your reserves. Reasons for taking prudent or optimistic stances on various assumptions exist, but these must be made explicitly and clearly and never implicitly. Why do I say this? Well, firstly, as we've discussed, reserving is the bedrock of the company, and so any implicit biases in your work will flow directly into pricing, planning and capital decisions. What's even worse is if people in pricing, planning and capital teams start to second guess your implicit prudence or optimism and then start adjusting your reserves to allow for it in their own calculations. One of the biggest issues I've seen in my career, and one which was very painful to unwind, was a situation where implicit prudence from the reserving team became accepted as the norm by key stakeholders. When that implicit prudence ran out, there were big implications for pricing, capital and planning, and not long after that, many of the people in that reserving team were no longer in role. So, know your best estimate and be very explicit if you ever deviate from it. Next, you need to consider why you were doing the modelling. As we've just discussed, seeking a best estimate should be the target, but there may be justifiable reasons for wanting to deviate from this. The clearest example I can give here would be an M&A transaction. The claim reserves are the biggest liability on an insurer's balance sheet, and so a seller may want to slightly underestimate that liability, while a buyer may want to do the opposite. The trick here is to be explicitly biased internally, whilst convincing the other side that you're at best estimate. This is why M&A work can be an exciting area for reserving actuaries. Again, be careful with any implicit prudence or optimism. There may be pressure around meeting plan, in both ways depending on whether it's been a good or a bad year. But don't forget, you will need to justify your work beyond management, for example to auditors, regulators or other third parties, all of whom are on high alert about profit management activity. The next 2 points, urgency and insight, are really just two sides of the same coin. The more time we spend looking into more granular segments and more issues within each segment, then the more insight we will provide. But we can't do that as quickly as a more high-level analysis. As usual, there's no right answer here, and so we'll need to pick a point on the spectrum which best balances our conflicting demands. However, there are some ways to do both. For example, using a trigger-based approach to allow the use of more mechanical or roll-forward techniques on easy classes, thus leaving time for more digging into the trickier classes or issues. Or maybe using machine learning to do the reserving, and then adding our subjective overlay to classes which the machine has struggled with, or where the machine's results look out of line. I would say at this point that machine learning is not an open goal for reserving. Reserving is an art as much as a science, which is one of the reasons that makes it such an exciting area to work in. Historical actuary-in-a-box techniques have not gained traction, and evidence to date is that the more modern techniques are much more effective on the easy classes than those requiring actuarial skill. Machine learning for reserving is an area we should invest in, but just don't put all your eggs in that basket is all I'm saying. Another option to improve insight and urgency would be to hire more staff or to automate as much of the input-output side of the work, to free up resources for the value-adding analysis central part of the reserving work. Again, a balance needs to be struck based on your particular situation, so do consider this before you start modelling. That completes my coverage on the preparatory steps you need to take before you start modelling. But keep watching this video as I'm now going to try to change your mindset on documentation. Stick with me for a few more minutes and I assure you that you'll save yourself time and add more value for using modelling notes as a powerful tool to aid you. Okay, I'm going to cut to the chase here. Most modelling notes are a waste of time and effort. They are endlessly recycled and out of date. They don't help the people who make them, and when I'm sent them as a reviewer, I instantly lose interest as they are overly long and just a brain dump of random thoughts. However, if you start to use modelling notes in the way I'm going to describe to you now, then you will suddenly find that they become a fantastic resource for you, acting both as a get out of jail free card for you and also driving your review meetings so that you're in control of the meeting and the reviewer feels much more confident in the work that you've done. Sound good? I thought so. Let's show you the way forward. The first thing to get right is the structure. You want to clearly segregate modelling notes for each class or segment that you've modelled. It's probably best to have a separate document for each, but you also don't want hundreds of files, so choose a reasonable split such that it's easy to find what you need. Your company may well have a template for modelling notes, and in that case you should use this template. If not, create your own and stick to it, as you want to be able to find information quickly, and that means having a consistent structure across modelling note files. Next, and most importantly, you'll want to have an executive summary of the utmost key decisions and uncertainties you've encountered whilst modelling. This executive summary is going to be all that you will share with the reviewer, and it's only going to be a page long, so no excuses for not having this bang up to date, nor for not having the time to do it. By having a brief, targeted executive summary, you should guarantee that it gets read by the reviewer, and this should steer the conversation at your review meeting. This way, you'll know what are the key topics which you can ensure that you are ready to present and discuss with the reviewer. No more scrabbling around in the depths of your notes trying to answer unexpected questions in unexpected areas during your review meeting. The whole idea of the executive summary is to have a great discussion with your reviewer, help get to the right modelling result, and also for you to learn from how the reviewer reacts to and deals with the most complex problems you've faced. The idea is definitely not to hide and hope from the problems. You're putting them right in the middle of the discussion, which is the only way to learn and to get the right end result. If you miss out, deliberately or not, the real key issues, then the reviewer will see through you in minutes and you'll have damaged your credibility. So don't hide things. Instead, seek to discuss, solve and learn about them together. Let's take one of our modelling notes files and consider what should be included within it. Well, most importantly, these notes should be a record and justification of the key decisions you've made whilst building your models. Just think about how many times we've had to engage our brains during our discussion of the policy lifecycle and other preparations for modelling. We're going to come across many more subjective decisions and issues whilst modelling and when reviewing our work before submitting it for peer review. So there are going to be a lot of things for us to record and potentially justify. It's important to remember that you do not need to write down everything you can think of, but also be careful not to write too little. And yes, you did hear me right. We're going to review our work before submitting it. And that's because there's nothing more concerning to a reviewer than spotting an error or an obvious oversight in the first few minutes of the review. Immediately your credibility as a modeller is shot and you will face a barrage of questions that might never have been asked if the reviewer had still had confidence in you. Anyway, that's for lecture 5, so we'll move on for now. Next, and most incredibly importantly, you need to start your notes afresh every review. Remember, you're recording your key decisions, and so you don't want to be railroaded by the key decisions from last time. Naturally, you do want to be cognizant of these key decisions from last time, so do refer back to those modelling notes, but don't worry about old issues or clog up your focused modelling notes with old news. Remember, we want a source of information that we can quickly and reliably refer to if we're asked to justify our work. So, accidentally rolling out the justification from 2 or 3 reviews ago is not going to be helpful to you. Again, these modelling notes are for use in your review meeting. The reviewer may ask questions beyond your executive summary, especially at first while they're getting used to this new way of working and while you're building up your experience and their confidence in you. So you need the information contained within them to be accessible and clear. Again, by focusing on key decisions only, you'll have more time and energy to properly document what you need to. This is when you'll discover that your modelling notes are your get out of jail free card. Any left field questions can quickly be answered, giving both you and the reviewer more confidence in your work. And if you do get caught out here, use it as a lesson as to how much to write and also how important a decision needs to be properly documented. Just don't fall back into the trap of writing chapters on every tiny issue or of not starting your modelling notes afresh each review. Oftentimes you get a reasonable amount of time to do your modelling work before it comes up for a review, but then you are very rushed when putting through changes during or following reviewer feedback. However, don't for a second think about dropping your documentation standards. Almost by definition, these last minute changes are going to be the most important decisions as they need to be properly documented. Why so? Well, you've still got the report to write and presentation meetings with management to get through, so you need to be able to explain yourself. Not to mention that these modelling notes are for your benefit next time. Next quarter or year you are going to be remodelling this class and you need to be able to understand what you did last time. Don't think you'll remember. When you were a junior, you were looking at so many classes that you'll forget why you did things. You'll get lost in the trees and miss the wood, as they say. So we can see how these modelling notes are not going to be a waste of time for you. They're going to give you more confidence in yourself, make you look better to your reviewers, and help future you when you come back to model again next time. I hope you can see the benefits and that you give it a try. I'd love to hear how you get on with this new approach to modelling notes. So that's it. We've now covered all the preparatory steps you need to take before modelling. Well done for having the perseverance to expand your knowledge and understanding of the work you're doing. Having taken all these steps, you should be feeling confident to get cracking on with the actual modelling and in the next lecture we're going to talk about how the chain ladder method works. It's a simple and elegant method, but it's not perfect, and we'll discuss the pros and cons of the methodology in detail so that you can be confident if and when you should be using it. You should be able to see the next video in the series on the left hand side here, so please click to move on to it now. As usual, please also like and subscribe to support these videos. Again, you should be able to see a small circle which you can click to subscribe. And do let me know your comments and feedback on these videos in the comments sections below. Thank you.